Can opera and death metal coexist? That's the question we're going to answer today in my review of the new album by Fleshgod Apocalypse called Opera. This was an album that was born from tragedy. I'll talk more about that in a minute. It's an album that talks about fear, pain, and redemption. It's based on an opera, so let me start with a quick history. Fleshgod Apocalypse is an Italian symphonic death metal band. They formed in 2007. They are from Perugia, Italy. They're currently signed to Nuclear Blast Records. Opera is their sixth album, and this one is a follow-up to their 2019 album called Velano, which is an album that I enjoyed back when it came out. But now they're back, and the new album, Opera, it's coming out this Friday, August 23rd, 2024. They're mixing death metal and opera. Now, they're not the first band to do this. Symphonic death metal has been around for a while. One of the biggest symphonic death metal bands is Septic Flesh, so that would be a good comparison. But this band, Fleshgod Apocalypse, really take it to another level because it's based on the classic Italian operas. What makes this album special is that it's an album that came from a near-death experience. The story begins with their frontman, Francesco Paoli. He's a guy who likes extreme sports. So one day he decides to go mountain climbing, and unfortunately he had an accident and he fell from a considerable height. He woke up in a hospital. He underwent several surgeries. And while he's in the hospital, the doctors were not sure about his recovery. So he spent months not knowing if he would ever be able to play his instrument again. He spent months taking painkillers and using a wheelchair. But he fought hard and he recovered. So he took all of that pain and frustration and fear and channeled it into making this new album. So for him, it was like taking one of the worst things in life and turning it into a work of art. So basically this album is structured like a 10-act theatrical piece, which is the name of the album, called Opera. It's based on the Italian classical music theater with inspiration from people like Giuseppe Verdi and Giacomo Puccini. But it's not just opera, it's death metal and symphonic metal, and this is what this band have been doing for a while. It's based on an opera which basically has characters singing their lines, an orchestra, and in this case a band playing the music and lyrics telling stories, where in this case it is a tragedy. Now for the album, so basically the album has 10 songs. The first and last tracks are operatic tracks. The first one is just 2 minutes long, called Ode to Art dei Sepolcri, which has female vocals singing in a choir style, and it sounds like the introduction to an opera. And the closing track is called Opera, and that's a soft instrumental to close the album. Now, in the middle of the album are the songs, and they seem to progress throughout the album as if they were different acts. So let me talk about them. Track number 2 is called I Can Never Die, and this one sounds more like symphonic metal. You have your blast beats, operatic vocals in the background, and Francesco gives some harsh death growls, and they have some female clean vocals in an operatic style. This adds some variety to the sounds, and it goes into Pendulum, which has a bigger and darker sound with a more sinister atmosphere. So you could tell in the story this is when something dramatic is happening. You have lots of big stop and start guitar riffs, softer female vocals, thick bass guitar sounds. And as I was taking my notes, it kind of reminded me of death metal meets Phantom of the Opera. That is kind of like what I thought of while I was listening to this. And this goes into the next song called Blood Clock, which has a soft intro, then gets very heavy with death metal riffs and blast beats, followed by some pummeling guitar riffs and double bass drumming. And in the middle of the album is what I would say is my favorite song, and the name of that song is At War with My Soul. It's just like at the midpoint of the album where everything is happening, so the song starts kind of slow. You have epic sounding guitars, the choir vocals, then you have dark and heavy orchestral sounds mixed with modern death metal riffing. They also include operatic female vocals, but this time the female vocals sound very evil sounding. So you know something dramatic is going on in the story. And at the end of the song, you can hear people screaming as if something tragic happened. And this goes into the next song, and I felt it gets very dramatic here because the song is called Morphine Waltz. And from the title, you can assume it's about his time in the hospital. But This one mixes classical music with death metal, with fast-paced drums and orchestration, and has the female vocals, but you can feel the anger in the vocals. And this one goes into Matricide 8.21. It's an interesting track because they seem to shift gears a little bit. I felt this one was more like a typical symphonic metal song from a typical symphonic metal band, such as maybe Nightwish or Epica. It has the symphonic female vocals, the male vocals, and they're more spoken word with some neoclassical guitar playing. There are some death growls later on, but it's a good song. And then the penultimate song is Till Death Do Us Part, which is a softer song with female vocals that has a dark tone. It's very epic and climactic, and they close with a short instrumental called the Opera, as I said before. Now for my final thoughts, I thought it was very interesting because they did a good job mixing the death metal and the opera. And I know what you might be thinking, rock operas have been around for 50 years or more, so this is nothing new, and neither is symphonic death metal. Like I said, other bands have been doing it for a while. But I think this band, Fleshgod Apocalypse, really know how to mix death metal and opera. They understand the components of an opera. They know how to make an album that sounds like it's telling a story. They know how to use heavy parts. They know how to use clean parts. And they know how to evoke different types of feelings, whether they're looking to evoke sadness or anger from the listener. It's basically an opera for metalheads. That's basically what I'm getting at. So my score is an 8.5 out of 10. Thought it was very good. So check it out if you like death metal. It's a little different. It's coming out this Friday, so let me know if you're looking forward to it, or if it's already out and you're watching this video, let me know what you think of this album. Check out this video right here. It's my review of the new melodic death metal band, Dark Tranquillity. Thanks for watching. Please like this video. It helps me with the YouTube algorithm. Please subscribe if you're not already. I do rock and metal reviews. I do rankings. I do a lot more. I do classic album reviews as well. So I'll see you in the next one.